Hi guys. I just wanted to take a minute to review what we talked about yesterday. So we started lesson 2 on energy transfer and we talked about temperature and thermal energy yesterday. So before we move forward with anything new today, I want to talk about what we learned yesterday. First and foremost, we know that all matter, anything that has mass or takes up space, is made of moving particles. Now, these particles are referred to as atoms and molecules, and I said we'll talk more about atoms in the spring. But when particles are in motion or objects are in motion, they have what's called kinetic energy. Okay, so temperature is a form of measurement, but more specifically, it's a measurement of the average kinetic energy of particles. So I know I said this yesterday in Bell 4. I don't think I said it in Bell 3, but I said if I were to ask you to give me, if you had 4 science test grades, and I said, give me the average of those test grades, what would you do? You would add up those 4 test grades, get a total, and then divide it by 4, and you would get an average number. That's what temperature is. It's the average amount of kinetic energy these particles have. Okay, so the faster the particles are moving, the more kinetic energy it has. So the more kinetic energy it has, the higher the temperature is. So particles that move really, really fast have a high temperature. Now, we're not referring to heat or like as in the sense of warmth or feeling cool. Okay, we're not talking about that stuff. We're talking about the motion of the particles. If the particles are moving really, really slow on average, it's going to be a low temperature. This does not depend on the number of particles. So when we talked about the thermosphere, there's not really many particles up there, but they're moving really, really fast. So it has a high temperature, but doesn't actually feel hot because temperature doesn't measure heat. Okay, it's the measurement of the motion of the particles. So then we moved on to, if I can get this to change, there we go. Thermal energy. Thermal energy is the total kinetic energy of particles. Okay, so total, not average. Average is, like I said before with the science test example, the total. So if I said, give me the total amount of points earned on your 4 science tests, you would add all of them together and give me that number. So this is the total number of kinetic energy of particles. This does depend on the number of particles that an object has. The more particles in an object, the greater the object's thermal energy. So we looked at this. And first I asked you, which of these two has a higher temperature? Okay. We all said the cup of coffee. Why? Because the particles in this cup of coffee are moving a lot faster. We know that heat is associated to particles that move really quick. Okay, that can even go back to the water cycle, to be honest. Remember, if liquid water evaporates into water vapor, the particles, remember I said they have to speed up really, really fast. They have to get a lot of kinetic energy to change into that vapor. So, and that requires heat. So that's what's happening here. Then I said, which has more thermal energy? So this depends on the number of particles. The more particles an object has, the greater its thermal energy. So while we associate an iceberg with being cold, we're not looking at that. We're looking at its thermal energy. So it has more thermal energy because more particles make up that iceberg than this cup of coffee. So now I'd like you to go watch the video that we were going to watch at the end of class yesterday before moving on to part 2 of this lecture when we talk about something new.